Welcome to Raven's Ultimate Classic Doctor Who Toy Reviews. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 2 of the Ultimate Classic Doctor Who Toy Reviews. In this episode we will be focusing on the 1990s release / 1980s release, Dapol Daleks. I call them Dapol, other people call them Dapol, other people call them Dapol, I call them Dapol. Tomato, tomato, tomato. Whatever. Okay, so let's crack on with this review. Now, these Daleks hold a very special, thing to me, because when I was little, growing up, this was pretty much the main Doctor Who toy that I had. The figures that came with these, Daleks, like the Doctor, the Companions, the Ice Warriors, Cybermen, etc., were not very good. The Daleks were definitely the best, and Davros. So they were always the toy of choice. They were around about £3.99 to buy in the shops. Specialised shops, of course. I used to have two little sci-fi shops near me, and they're the shops I used to go to all the time. Now, these Daleks are not the original Daleks that I used to have, except for one, this one here. The reason for that, as you can see, this one's broken. Pretty much all the Daleks I had were broken because I was little and I would play with them until they broke. I used to throw them down the stairs and all sorts of crazy things because that's what kids do. And now I'm a more mature child, 24-year-old child. I rebought them on eBay recently and will be keeping them in pristine condition. There are many types of variants of these Daleks. I haven't even got them all, although there are quite a few here. There's still quite a few for me to get, but I thought I would basically just cover the majority of the Daleks. Alright, so the first thing I will do, as I said, is show you a little bit closer the different variants of these Daleks. So starting from the one that I had when I was little, the broken one, it's black and silver, great colour design, obviously for a Supreme Dalek. I guess this one's supposed to be like the one from Remembrance of the Daleks. In colour only. Obviously the parts of a Dalek are very basic. This probably isn't the best Dalek to start with as it's broken, so we will quickly move on to the Gold Dalek, which is one of the later releases. Now, this Dalek was available in two schemes, this scheme and the scheme with a claw, which I used to have but sadly no longer have, so we'll be tracking that one down. The articulation on these Daleks is a 360 head spin, or like so, a little bit stiff on this one, but we've got there. Articulation in the limbs are very standard. They're quite tight because they're new and I don't really want to loosen them, and their head goes up and the eye goes down. Underneath these Daleks is an interesting mechanism. Basically, these Daleks work on the principle of pull back and go. I will give you a demonstration of that later on, but basically there are two wheels at the back and one wheel at the front, and that basically controls the Dalek's steering. So obviously this is a gold Dalek. This would be the most supreme Dalek of them all because it's covered in gold, and I expect the Cybermen wouldn't like this Dalek. Okay, and then moving on, we have Davros. Now this is the first release of Davros, featuring two hands, as you can see here. They later on realised that Davros does in fact only have one arm, and then quickly designed it with a hand missing basically. But this is the rarer release. I do have the one-armed Davros, but it hasn't arrived yet, so I won't be showing you that one in the video, but you can imagine what it looks like. The design of Davros is pretty nice. I mean, the camera probably doesn't pick it up so well, but you know, it is just the base of this Dalek. This Dalek here, with a different bumper fender. It is nice. It would have been nice perhaps if they'd released a Davros with like a gold bottom. I think they actually did in one set, believe it or not. Whether it was gold, I don't know, but they could have released it with all different bottoms. Just for a laugh. Maybe you could customise it. You probably could. Davros is just in his little chair. The back of Davros is pretty cool as well. So overall, Davros is always one of my favourite figures, because he's obviously in charge of the Daleks and he could go, tell the Daleks to move and whatnot. So that's Davros. Then we come on to the red Daleks. Now I'll say the red Daleks with quite a laugh in my voice, because there are so many different red Daleks. I've got 4 of them, and I'm pretty sure there were more. The first one I'll show you is this one. This is the closest to a movie Dalek that DePaul did. It's the only Dalek, apart from the gold Dalek I mentioned previous, that comes with a claw, and it's got a black fender base, as all the other Daleks have the same colour as their actual dome body. This was the only one to be different. So this is the closest we got to having a movie Dalek, and it was actually always my favourite Dalek, so that's probably why. The claw used to fascinate me, how it could strangle people, and yeah, I always really like this one. So he's my favourite. And then we've got the red and silver Dalek, pretty much similar to the movie Dalek, but only with the plunger and back to the standard DePaul variant. So this Dalek was always nice to have. I believe I army built this Dalek. I had about 4 or 5 of these silver ones, or red and silver ones, for various games I used to play as a young boy. And then we've got the red and gold Dalek. Now this red and gold Dalek always sticks in my mind because it is actually featured on, not this actual Dalek, but this variant of a Dalek. It's featured on More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS. I was reminded of that when I watched it on DVD recently. When they talk about a Dalek, they actually show this Dalek and they remove its head, and then there's a little blue flashy light, which I always used to think was inside these Daleks. That's always quite funny to think about. So that's the red and gold Dalek. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, watch More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS and you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what Raven meant. And then we've got the red and black Dalek, which is more of a supreme Dalek again, because I think black and gold usually meant that the Daleks were more supreme. And that's pretty much it for the red Daleks, so if I just move those out of the way. Then we move on to one of the Scout Daleks. This is a grey and black design, again one of my favourites. Good for army building. This Dalek I always envisioned was taken from Destiny of the Daleks. It just always reminds me of Destiny of the Daleks, so I guess that's what they were aiming for. Then we got another black Dalek, this time a gold Dalek, so this time it's more superior perhaps than the black and silver Dalek that I was talking about earlier. So another supreme Dalek. Then we have the Imperial Dalek, which I was so happy they made because I loved Imperial Daleks. This is the Dalek really from Revelation of the Daleks, I'd imagine. It was nice to have a white Dalek. It stuck out like a sore thumb in those days because most of the Daleks were red. And then we move on to this Dalek here, which is actually a Millennium Dalek. Now I do only have 1 of these, but there were 5 made for the Millennium, whatever, of course, in 2000. Or was it 3000? So yeah, these Daleks were nice. Basically, if you can see, they are finished off with a glitter glow. They come